Thanks, Katie, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the INDOT regional meetings, or should I say now statewide meetings, since this is the second year that we've done a combined meeting like this. It was 1 year ago when we did our very first virtual meeting. It was this exact one. And since then, we've hosted many committee meetings. We've all gotten used to using Teams and Zoom, and also did our virtual conference this past year on a virtual platform, as well as our ICAT class. So while we've missed seeing all of you in person, we've still been hard at work here at APAI, making sure to advance the industry, to continue to partner with the INDOT group, including the individuals we have here participating today, as well as continuing a lot of our other initiatives like workforce development, awarding scholarships, and trying to put on outstanding programs for all of you. I did want to mention we've moved into a new office, so we're very excited. We're having an open house next week on April 27th. We hope that many of you will be able to stop by for that. With that, we're also getting ready to relaunch back into in-person meetings. So that includes things like our Shooting for Scholarships, which is coming up on April 27th. We do only have one team spot remaining for that. We're very close to a sellout event. And we can't wait to see all of you at that event. And hopefully we get a nice sunny April day for that. We also are moving forward with getting ready for a summer meeting. More details and a date will be provided for that in future newsletters, as well as our winter conference, which is December 13th through 15th. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Nathan Awad, who's on here. Nathan is the asphalt engineer for INDOT.
All right, that was a quick introduction. Like Kirsten said, I'm with INDOT, and let me share my screen. All right, so hopefully you guys are seeing that. If not, let me know. So as Matt said in the first session, we are now the Division of Materials and Test, for those who haven't heard. I guess I'll get right into the presentation here. So by overview, I have three main sections I want to go over today. I want to go over spec updates, which includes ITMs and directives, stuff like that. I wanted to go over a general overview of the HMA programs, kind of how we've tried to modernize our workflow over the last few years, and then discuss some of the ongoing HMA initiatives into the future. So to begin, RSPs, recurring special provisions, those are on the website. The way the way these work. So for instance, the 2020 spec book is out right now, but let's say we make a spec change. So we release a recurring special provision that basically, once it's approved by the standards committee and is published, this recurring special provision is inserted into a contract. And that now becomes part of the spec book. So it's a way to update the spec book in between spec book releases. The next one is coming out for 2022. So it'll come out September 1st of this year. So what I want to talk about specifically is RSP 401 R701, which is the QCQA HMA pavement. And if you notice here, we had one version that came out in June 2020, and then we had another version that came out effective March 1st, 2021. So by way of review, the one that was effective 6/1 of 2020 allowed finer graded surface mixtures, 9.5 surface mixtures. We made some edits to open graded air void targets. We put in some temperature requirements, specifically that before you pave on the mat has to cool to 175 degrees. We put in a minimum mix temperature behind the paver. So if the mix needs to be 245 degrees or rising behind the paver, and that's if it's not accepted by density cores. we made an allowance for lift thickness to be up to 5 times. It was two to 4 times. The aggregate size, the reason was to allow more flexibility in the field. So what we really wanted to focus on today was what's in that RSP, what was added as of anything letting 3/1/2021. So we added some areas where plate samples and cores had exceptions where they did not need to be taken, and then we made a small edit to the 306 section regarding patching. 304 maybe. We'll see here in a second. So here's what we added into 401 regarding plate sample exceptions. The reason this came about was because we had some areas where, for instance, the contractor wanted to use a paver to put the mix down. It was more advantageous to use the paver, better to use the paver as opposed to a widener. But the way the specs were set up is basically if you use a paver, it's subject to testing. And so we thought, let's get the best of both worlds here. Let's areas that are obviously meant to be 402 mix or not tested, let's go ahead and allow a paver to be used there so that the INDOT gets a better end product as opposed to being put out with a widener or other means. So basically you can use a paver on an approach, taper, gore area, or crossover that is not in the plans to be placed simultaneously with the main line. So that way you can use the paver there, but it's not tested. Mixture placed on a shoulder, less than 8 foot wide. And then because of startup and end of the day, we put within 25 feet of a transverse construction joint. And then very similar, we added the same exceptions to cores for the same reasons. And then the only difference is point D there, letter D, is we also said don't take a core within 25 feet of an acceptance sample. So those were added to the RSP. And then here's the minor tweak we made to section 304. We made this, everything not in blue there was in a previous spec edit. And if you notice there, it says HMA used for patching shall be in accordance with 402. Well, we added the mat temperature requirement in section 402. And so we inadvertently put a mat temperature requirement in the patching section. So what we did is we called it out saying, hey, don't worry about the previous mat cooling to 175 degrees before you put the next lift of the patch. Mainly because a patch has confined edges, so you don't have to worry about the mix shoving. But also sometimes patches, it's for time sensitive issues. So that's why we added that. The big question, how does this affect your contract? I think we can avoid a construction memo this year because the spec says in where it talks about sampling, I believe it's the 40109 or something like that. It says sampling in accordance with ITM 802. Well, if you go look right now, ITM 802 has been updated, and what you see in yellow, which is the same things we talked about in the RSP, I have added those into the ITM. So I think we're good there because that effectively made the ITM immediately effective. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We can always, if you need to, request a change order, a no-cost change order to incorporate the newest RSP. But I think I think we are good to go this year. So that was spec updates. There has been a few ITM updates. Again, those are on the website. I think these are actually all the changes that have been made. Everything else hasn't been touched in a while. So ITM 571, we did update that to allow the auto extractor. One of the consultant testing labs does plan on using that this year. So we added that as a valid method. We INDOT are also looking in. I think we have purchased the machines, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to incorporate those this year. But so I'm not sure the timeline on that quite yet. But and as a side note, we did the policy with using those is basically if you start a DMF with an auto extractor, the auto extractor needs to be used throughout the paving season to avoid flipping back and forth between the type of extraction. I did update ITM 583, the certified HMA producer procedures. Without going through the whole list of sequences, bottom line is the JMF allowances for binder adjustment in the ITM did not match what's actually in the 410 section. The 410 section allows the SMA binder to be adjusted plus or minus 0.3%. So if you want to know the backstory on how that got in there, I can tell you later offline, but the bottom line is we corrected the ITM to match the specification. We did some updates to ITM 587. I think, sorry, I said ITM 587 a second ago. ITM 587, reducing HMA samples to testing size. It's wasn't any major changes. We just added some more narrative on mixing and quartering samples to give more guidance to our guys and to those who are IA people who are observing the test. And then, like I referenced before, we updated ITM 802 random sampling to add the plate and core sample exceptions. Again, INDOT directives are on the website as well, but these are internal procedures developed by INDOT to direct testing activities, so they're not necessarily enforceable on you as a producer, but they are out there, so we can all be looking at the same thing. And there really hasn't been any updates to those this year. I think the latest update was Directive 305, and it was literally an editorial change. I think it had something to do with the posted GSP list. Instead of saying it will be mailed out or something like that, or sent out, I said it will be posted online annually. So again, that was a minor change. So no real changes with the directives this year. So if you watch the road school presentation, some of these slides are looking familiar. So I wanted to talk about just overview of the HMA programs and how we switched to a lot of cloud-based tools. DMF entry, field assistant, lab testing, and HMA Pay Wizard. So anybody listening to this probably is familiar with most of these. DMF entry is used by producers in district testing for approving or accepting mixed designs. Lab testing, that's how the raw data is entered. It's entered into lab testing, and that is able to be disseminated into Site Manager and HMA Pay Wizard and the like. Field Assistant is out there to help district construction. It gets data from the field into Site Manager and also into all these other programs in a more consistent manner. And then obviously Pay Wizard is how that's how we get the data quickly back out regarding HMA acceptance. So quick timeline, 2019, we implemented DMF entry, cloud-based. Hopefully this is going more smoothly as we're getting more used to it. So this will be the third year using it. It looks very similar to the Excel sheet. It's just a little sleeker. You know, we're continually trying to update this to make it more user-friendly, better viewable, things like that. We also in 2019 implemented lab testing, and this is what the labs use and see. This is how they pull a sample in, check it in. You can enter raw data, and then that disperses to all the programs we need it to. Like I said, field assistance for those in the field. It really helps to get uniform, consistent data. All of these do. It's getting that data point from the beginning and then not having to ever duplicate it again. It gets it all into a cloud-based system, and then it automatically goes from there. So, and then HMA Pay Wizard is kind of the ultimate end goal for right now of where all this data gets incorporated. So, you know, here's the old Excel workbook, and we've made it into a cloud-based online tool that we've really tried to reduce our turnaround times, in some cases months, which now is down to days or weeks at most. So again, I did want to point out right now for DMF entry, that can handle HMA and open graded, but SMA is still accepted by the Excel DMF cover sheet for now. And then HMA Pay Wizard can right now only process HMA. So open graded and SMA are still handled with the Excel Pay workbooks for now. Again, we're continually trying to improve what we have, but for now, this is where we stand for how we're going to use those programs. And again, why are we doing this? Besides turnaround time, better customer service, we also get a lot of data. And right now, all that data is being dumped into the INDOT data warehouse, and we're starting to be able to mine that to be able to look at data in ways we haven't before. We've been working on this for a year now, trying to clean the data up, know what we're looking at, have confidence in the data. There's no outliers, bad data, and it's really starting to come along. So I hope that really provides a lot of benefit in the future. So the last section or topic I wanted to talk about was our HMA initiatives for the future. So we have a strategic steering committee in place now that is made up of INDOT executive level employees. And the reason we did that was to have an overarching, those people who are near the top of the org chart make decisions for INDOT as a whole. So we have one vision for whatever we're looking at, whatever the initiative is, or whatever that subject might be. And I'm sure many of you have seen how a lot of times in a bigger organization, sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, or we don't know if we're both working on the same thing. So the point of this is so INDOT comes off with one vision, one goal, and we're not duplicating or fighting each other, worst case scenario. So with spray pavers, right now, we are, the current view of the strategic steering committee is to continue on a yearly basis to put those projects or those contracts out there. We're working internally on basis for use and where that best fits into the paving program. But for right now, we are still manually selecting projects every year and distributing those ahead of time through the APAI Association. And for those who don't know, instead of using a tack truck and spraying ahead of time, the emulsion is actually sprayed directly on the pavement right before the screed. So for this model here, the red indicates where it's sprayed in the front of the machine. The yellow is their spray bars behind the rear wheel or track that gets sprayed directly right in front of the screed, so, or the auger, I should say. So it really helps avoid tracking and getting that better bond, improving the pavement. Another initiative the Strategic Steering Committee has taken up is VRAM. And quick review for those who don't know, VRAM, you spray this material under the joint. So you spray it down and then you pave on top of it. So for instance, half of it would get covered by one lane, half of it would be covered by the other. The heat from the HMA helps it migrate up and seal that joint. And we're seeing good results with this stuff. Like you can see in the picture, you can track on it. I mean, that was like, I think 30 seconds after it was laid. So no pickup. And so the Strategic Steering Committee has committed to implementing this in the 2026 specification book for Category 4 roadways. Again, that's 2026. And the reason we did that is because VRAM does have a cost associated with it. It does impact the planned budgets for these projects as they're in development. So up until 2026, we are manually selecting those projects. Internally, we have a working group to get all the right departments involved and select those projects. And so those are being selected and disseminated as needed. And then the third topic is joint seal. Mainly using a different material as opposed to the current longitudinal joint sealant, which is SS1H at a very low rate, I think 0.03 gallons per square yard. And the reason is because we know there has been material pavement marking compatibility issues with the current longitudinal joint sealant. It can make those pavement markings come up very quickly, especially with snowplow damage. There also is a longer cure time involved with that. And so we are looking at different alternatives to that. One of the main products is rapid penetrating emulsion. There's other products that are more of a traffic pavement marking material, but hopefully those materials have better pavement marking compatibility and also have a reduced cure time. I think, like for example, right now RPE has a cure time of 2 days, but we know it's really more like a few hours as opposed to 5 days for the sealant. So again, we're looking at that and just seeing if we like the product as a whole and if we want to make a material swap. And again, if we decide to go that direction, we need to implement that slowly. So there can be supply and equipment build up for that. So, and last but not least, IRI. The last I heard, this really isn't in my wheelhouse. I'm kind of passing on secondhand information here. Last I heard, the goal is to fully implement in calendar year or construction year 2023. And there has been projects selected for 2021 already and disseminated. And then Construction Memo 2102 has been released, allowing for the use of high-speed profilers as a substitute for profiler graphs or straight edges. That construction memo is out there with a lot more detail, but I wanted to make everyone aware of that. And then, as always, I try to plug my HMA Plant Map. I do try to keep this up to date with all these certified plants that are in Indiana. And it can be useful from time to time. So with that is really all I had. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast. I do see there are a few questions. Will INDOT get away from outsourcing HMA plate testing? So I assume that means the consultant labs. That is above my pay grade. I don't think it will go away anytime soon because of I'll put it bluntly, the unexpected success of it. I think a lot of us internally did not think it would work, or that it would be a huge disaster, and it went surprisingly well. The two consultant labs are very seem to be proactive and willing to work with us, and so it has gone well. If an auto extractor is used, will the sample size required for 25 millimeter mixes be reduced to accommodate the limits for the auto extractor's recommended size limits? The sample size is, the ITM refers to the sample size. The ITM sample sizes take precedent over what's in the ASTM. So it's still the normal sample sizes that are required, that have always been required. And in our committee meetings, I did not hear that would cause an issue. Off the top of my head, I want to say it's 2,500 grams, 2,000. I don't remember, but I did not think it was that was going to be an issue. Whoever that was, we can definitely talk offline if you know or can help us with that situation. Is a patch being developed for HMA Paywizard to better accommodate missing plate samples / sublots? Yeah, so I think this is specifically referencing, how do you just make that, let's say sublot 3 was missed. Is there an easy button to make sublot 2 results duplicate into sublot 3 like current policy is? The answer is yes. And I know it had been talked about, and we did just release an update last week or this week, but I'm not sure that was part of the update, but it is being worked on. But I would have to check on with others for a timeline on that. With recent increases in binder contents and density with S5, is INDOT considering evaluation of the need for surface applied liquid asphalt sealant? Could it be eliminated entirely? Maybe. We do know that with S5 there is an inherent increased mat density, but there still is concern at the joints, which is why we apply that liquid asphalt sealant on top. I would think we still would have some sort of joint treatment because we have seen a lot of success with that. The answer that actually popped in my head is if VRAM prices come down and we like the material to implement it statewide or across the board, then we would eliminate asphalt sealant that way by using VRAM. But I'm not saying that's where it's going right now. That was kind of my sarcastic off the cuff answer. Let's see, one just came in. How soon will INDOT be considering an alternative joint seal to SS1H RPE? Is this a longer term project? So like I said, we've had a project. I think the first one was in 2019. We had a few in 2020, and really we're trying to get some time on those pavement markings to evaluate the adherence. From a material standpoint, I think it's at least as equivalent to our current liquid asphalt sealant treatment, if not better. And then you also have the reduced cure time. So I don't think it's going to be very long before a decision is made, because right now we can go out and evaluate those projects that had a winter on them or two. So that's a great question. That's probably more of a discussion for our INDOT APAI committee meetings. But yeah, I would, if I had to guess, maybe a year or two before it starts rolling in. But don't hold me to that. Can RPE be applied after pavement markings? I do not think so. I believe it can cause issues by covering up those pavement markings. So I know the manufacturer, they like getting that RPE down when the pavement is new before it gets clogged up with dust and fines. If you wanted to go back and do an application afterwards, you either have to cover those pavement markings somehow or reapply them, I believe. So yeah. So I'll wait for some more questions to come in, but I'll take the opportunity to say thank you again. Thank you for attending and for those who worked to get this set up, namely IMAA. And I guess, is there any other closing remarks from Matt or Katie or Kirsten before we end this thing? All right. Oh, Matt, got anything?
No, I was just going to say thank you again.
All right. Well, I guess we're not paving today, but the presentation will be available for in the future. That will be mailed out, and I guess with that we'll wrap it up.